Absolute carnage today on the cobbles in the first ever edition of Paris-Roubaix Femmes, starting in Denain, a 116-kilometre long course with the hardest 5-star sections being Mons-en-Pervel and the Carrefour de l'Arbre section, about 17 k's from the finish. But the cobbles started with about 80 to 85 kilometers to go. We would have live coverage before Auchy-les-Orchies-Bercé with about 53 kilometers to go. But let's hear what some of the big stars had to say before the start.
It's a mix of like excitement, but also I'm a bit afraid, and I think you need to have respect for this kind of cobbles.
Maybe with some rain and will be very hard. I don't know. I only want to have fun and enjoy with my team.
We learned it's hard. It's very important to be well positioned onto the cobbles.
I think there will be a lot of chaos. There will be a lot of things happening, and hopefully the strongest will survive.
Valcar presumably ecstatic, bringing newly minted world champion Elisa to the start in the rainbow bands. And before the coverage started, we saw teams trying to send riders up the road. We also found out that Annemiek van Vleuten, leading the Women's World Tour overall competition, crashed and broke a bone, and so she'll be recovering now for the rest of the off-season. Best wishes to her. There were numerous other crashes, including the on-form Marlon Reusser, as well as mechanicals as they started these cobble sections. But it was Lizzie Deignan going clear with 80 k's to go, forcing other riders like Marianne and her team to chase with, you see, Trek teammate for Deignan, Elisa Borghini, on her wheel. And so with 51.5 k's to go before the Mons-en-Pervel section, we saw Lizzie Deignan clear and looking good. She was helped by a decent tailwind as well. They'd finished this course at a 40-kilometre-hour average, being chased by Majerus on SD Works, marked by guess who? Elisa Borghini, once again the Italian national champion. And the peloton behind, there were numerous teams with multiple riders, including Jumbo-Visma on the front. You can see Lotte Kopecky mid-pack, SD Works have got numbers as well. But the problem was being in the group in these wet conditions were crashes, and you can see the problem here, and this is one of the most important parts of the race, I think. Rihanna Marcus and Anna Henderson for Jumbo-Visma, two of the strongest domestiques for Jumbo-Visma and Marianne Vos, get caught behind a crash. Their race over. If Netherlands had Rihanna Marcus on their team at Worlds, Vos wins gold. Can't change my mind. And so with the gap at 2 minutes to Deignan, we saw the cobbles playing havoc, Norsgaard crashing, as well as teammate of Deignan, Longo Borghini. Majerus strong on the front, world champ. Balsamo slipping and sliding going down. Deignan herself yeeting around a few of these corners, but she stayed upright the entire race. And I guess being in front, which with Ellen van Dijk and Borghini behind, meant she didn't have to sprint to get into position before any of the sectors. She wasn't caught in the cat and mouse behind. She was able to tap out her rhythm, and Lisa Brennau was very strong on the cobbled sections with about 40 to 30 k's to go. Norsgaard getting back on as well, but we saw the group start to slow up, and who do we see at the front of this group, which means the gap has expanded out to 2:30? Ellen van Dijk, Elisa Longo Borghini, and Cordon Rago for Trek-Segafredo. If you see the teammates of Deignan up the road on the front, not a great look. You see, I think, Tointje Berkhuis trying to come through to pace for Marianne Vos for Jumbo-Visma, and there's Bastianelli in the next cobble section. The domestiques get dropped. Ellen van Dijk also got dropped. She'd also crash later. I hope she's okay. And so with 22 k's to go, that gap has barely gone down at all, and now Vos is looking over her shoulder, and there's only individual riders from each team in the group, except for Movistar, with Norsgaard having one teammate, Chantal van den Broek-Blaak, coming up on the right-hand side trying to increase the pace, but there wasn't a concerted effort or cohesion in this chase group behind. Every time they maybe got something going, then someone would accelerate, like Koch here for DSM on the cobbles. Deignan miraculously keeping it up, whereas in the group behind, if someone does that in front of you, you go down, and often riders went down hard. Sarah Roy, Van Dijk, I think, hit her head quite hard there. Majerus, I believe. Amy Peters managed to get through. Norsgaard was back. Mud Eden would be able to finish for Movistar, but was someone who'd be very dangerous in a reduced group in the velodrome. And Vos eventually going clear with the gap at 2 minutes, 17 k's to go. Carrefour de l'Arbre 5-star section left, and Deignan's teammate Longo Borghini chasing, but it was too late. Deignan barely lost any time on the cobbled sections throughout this race. Her technical prowess was obviously excellent, not going down when almost every other rider crashed, and then being strong enough to keep tapping out a rhythm on the asphalt sections. Vos initially put 30 seconds into her, but couldn't take any more, and so the gap was always over 1:15 between Vos chasing Lizzie Deignan. And it's been an incredible week for British cycling. Actually, a lot going on for British cyclists. We had Joss Loudon break the UCI hour record, drops the Cobbled rider, who coincidentally had 2 riders in the top 20 here, which was very impressive for a non-Women's World Tour team. We had Dan Bigham break the British hour record in Switzerland, Bradley Wiggins' record, and now Lizzie Deignan, the first ever rider to enter the velodrome in Paris-Roubaix Femmes, first solo with a clear gap. She didn't really step off the gas at all despite that lead to soak up the win, and she got the bell for 1 lap to go. An incredible performance from Deignan, whose form was starting to come good later in the season. Had a pretty quiet classic season in the spring by her standards, winner of RVV, of course, back in 2016, and La Course last year as well. But here was I thinking that maybe one of the engines like Brennauer, Van Dijk, Reusser would be winning this Paris-Roubaix, but it was one of the lighter and technically proficient riders in the wet, muddy conditions who won after going clear with 80 kilometers to go, Cancellara-esque, with the Aaron Rodgers style belt celebration over the Trek-Segafredo logo. And I want to zoom in on this. Her hands are bleeding. You can see the photo of her handlebars. She didn't wear gloves in this race, held on the hoods during all the cobble sections, and just about ground out all the skin on the inside of her hands. And spare a thought once again for Marianne Vos, another second place at a major event after coming behind Balsamo in the world champs, and Elisa Longo Borghini taking third. Another teammate masterclass from her, just like she did for future Trek-Segafredo teammate Balsamo at the world champs, hugging Lizzie Deignan with the Trek 1-3 and a 40km/h average from Deignan, and the number of finishes they had in these conditions, pretty impressive, I have to say. But yeah, let me know what you think down below of the inaugural edition of Paris-Roubaix Femmes. I'm looking forward to it again next year. Maybe we'll see the cyclocrossers Brand and Vas, who had to miss it this year when it's in its normal place in the calendar, coming through as well. I can't wait for that. Here's the final results. Deignan first, then Vos, Longo Borghini, Brennauer, Bastianelli, Norsgaard, Koch, Cordon Rigaud, Cavalli, and Chantal Vandenbroek Black. Perhaps with the retirement of Anna van der Breggen and Chantal Vandenbroek Black at some point next year, there could be a changing of the guard in the women's peloton. Are Trek-Segafredo looking like the strongest all-round team in the peloton? But a lot of smiles, tears at the finish. It was great to see riders lapping up the atmosphere in the velodrome in Roubaix. But I hope you enjoyed the video. Like it down below if you did. That's not the end of Roubaix this weekend. I'll have highlights of the men's race dropping tomorrow evening on Sunday night, as well as the Lanterne Rouge cycling podcast recap straight after the race on all podcast players. But until then, ciao.